So we got a special guest in the house today. Could you do me a favor and introduce yourself, G?
Yeah, my name is Mario Pantoja. Back in Cali, they used to call me Rooster Gallo from Sanjo.
Much love, and you've had quite the journey. So let's get started at the beginning, because I know you were involved with gang banging and all that. So
Yeah.
how was it that you got involved and well, what drove you, I should say, to street life?
Well, I was born in Mexico City, in the lower class neighborhood, really poor, and my parents got divorced when I was 7, and my mother ended up going up to the States. And 2 years later, they took us illegally to the States. Uh, my grandma was already living in the States, and then my mother went. And 2 years later, they got enough money to get us to the States. It was me, my brothers, and my cousins, all little kids. So it was a hard journey going over there. It was a bunch of kids from the ages between 12 and down to 6 months.
Yeah.
So we got to the border with Arizona, and we couldn't get across because it was a bunch of kids. It was about 6 kids and just 2 grown-ups.
Yeah.
And we had just a really hard time. And what happened was that my grandma had to come down to the border and kind of rescue us because we were running out of money. We were staying in cheap hotels and everything. And when she got down there, they told her, if you want to get them across, you got to hire this coyote, the best one out here, but he's in jail, and you got to pay the fine. So my grandmother went to a local jail down there in the border, found this guy and bailed him out. And he went to the motel room and told us, tonight I'm going to get you guys across, So that night he came with the Plymouth, big ass Plymouth lancha, and just told everybody to get in, just get in wherever you can, duck. And he started to roll through the desert. I mean, I couldn't see because I was right in the front on the ground, on my grandma's knees. And I could just tell that he was driving through the desert because I could feel the bumps. And he was driving without no lights. Everything was just turned off. But I could feel the bumps and just the road, He was not even on the road.
Were you a little scared at that point, like being a little kid driving in the dark and shit?
Well, at that point, we were all kids, so to me it was like a game, like hide and seek, And yeah, it was an adventure because like I said, we were there for a couple of weeks and we couldn't get across. By that time, even the border patrol knew us. They would give us lollipops and say, "See you guys tomorrow." In Spanish, they would say, And that's the way it was. For us, it was just like a game, like hide and seek. And then this guy just tried to drive us across the desert, and I could just feel the bumps. And then finally, he just said, we made it, and I could feel that the car went into the road. And then he goes into the road, and he just said, "We made it." We all just said, "Yeah," we're all like celebrating. Then he takes us to this safe house. And it was just like a regular apartment. And then the people there told us, we could take showers, use the bathroom. And they gave us some chips and dips, beans. And that's all we had that night. And then the next day, somebody from California came to pick us up. I didn't know that it was my mother already had a boyfriend. So that was my stepfather at the time. But, I hadn't met him yet. So he came down and picked up us in Arizona to take us to California. And I end up in California, and we're in this immigrant neighborhood, also low-class neighborhood in California. And it was full of gangs, that's what it was. And there was a Sureño neighborhood, and I was up in San Jose in North California, so it was different, But that's where my struggle starts because I felt like I didn't fit in. One of the things was that I didn't speak the language. I was culture shocked totally, 100%. Everything was different. for me, it was different in a good way. Even though we were lower class in California, it was 100 times better than what I was used to in Mexico. For instance, for me, it was the first time I had I had a regular shower with, like
Yeah.
a shower and a bathtub and
I was the
carpet
shower.
on the.
I was the showering in Mexico City, and
Oh
your
man,
neighbor.
we just used a bucket, and just
Yeah,
bird shower, man. That's all we did down there, and just cold water. We were really poor
yeah,
down there. And yeah, in my neighborhood in Mexico City, we were like right next to the garbage dump. So the back of my house was just a landfill, and I used to
damn,
play there in the landfill and everything. That's the way it was. So for me, like I said, it was a totally different experience going to the States, even though we were low income. Poor considered California standards. To me, it was, yes, way better.
yeah,
And then, so my parents got us into school right away, and I was going to ESL class, and in my class it was just a bunch of us that we were all the same immigrants. We didn't speak. There were Cambodians, Vietnamese, Mexicans, Central Americans. But in school, I started feeling that feeling of being different, because at lunchtime, I would try to, hang around with the regular kids, and they would kind of like, shoo me away, because I didn't speak the language. So I would just hang around with the other Mexican kids, and that's where the only place I started to feel at home was when I would go back to the neighborhood.
yeah,
And then that time I was living there was a barrio called BSS, Barrio Sureño Sombras, in the neighborhood that I used to live at. And I used to look up to, that's where I think I started to look up to the homies, because I would see them, and, nicely dressed, pressed, with their cars, and always hanging around in the corners, and they would always start talking to us, as little kids. They would say, hey, what are you guys doing? They would give us some money, for video games. Hey, go play some video games. They would go and buy hamburgers from McDonald's and hang them, So I started to really look up to those guys and say, like, man, those guys they're nice guys, they're cool guys, But then I started to see what the other side of the coin was. I would see them getting into fights, robberies, selling drugs, stuff like that. But to me, I still didn't mind it. Like I
yeah,
said, when I was out of my neighborhood, I felt, I felt like I didn't belong. And then I would go back to my neighborhood, and everybody spoke Spanish in the neighborhood. And the homies would be cool to us. And then all my neighbors were, they all spoke Spanish. We used to play. And when I was back in the neighborhood, it was all fine. The problem was when I would go out of the neighborhood, So I think that's one of the main reasons I started to I wanted to join the gang, because I felt like that's where I fit in.
yeah.
And like
You
I
felt
said, the homies.
right at home.
Yeah, and then the homies would always, like I said, would always treat us nice. There would be, but then they started to. At one point, they started to tell us, like, hey, hold on to this, drugs or money or whatever. Hold on to hide it for me for a while. And as kids, being, I don't know, 10, 11, I would just hide it under the car, and they would tell me, hey, give it back to me, because they knew that if the cops caught us with it, we just get away with it. And that's the way it was. So I started to really look up to those guys. But then there was an incident that I think really changed my mentality. One night, I used to live in this apartment buildings where, everybody in there was Sureños. I was still not in the gang, but we lived in the first apartment that would be right into the street.
Yeah,
And then one night we were all sleeping, and I just heard windows, getting smashed, and it was the windows of the apartment where I lived. And so I came out of the room, and I saw the living room was full of glass. And then I ran to my mother's room, and I opened it, and my parents were in there. And then they already had the light on, and I could see that there was a bunch of glass and a brick laying in the bed. And then my mom had a piece of glass stuck in her stomach, you know, and there was like blood. And I said, "Mom, are you okay?" And then she said, "Yeah, yeah." And then my dad pulled it out, and then I could hear them running away and yelling, "Norte, puro norte." And that's when I just said, man, you know, in my mind, I just said, man, I hate norteños, you know. You know, it was kind of like a revenge thing. Like I said, man, I'm gonna get these guys back. And at that time, I was 13, you know. And I just said, man. And I kind of knew by that time, you know, that there was that separation of norteños and sureños. But that's why I think where the kickoff point was for me, where I just said, you know, I'm gonna get revenge.
Yeah.
So then that night, the homies from the other apartments came and told my dad, "Hey, is everything cool? You need help?" So they were always there, you know. And that's the way it was. And then so that's I think that was the turning point where I said, you know, I'm gonna have revenge in my head. That's what I said. And then little things like that started happening. Another thing that I think that made me go into the lifestyle was that I had a lot of family down in Southern California, and I would go visit them during the summer. And my cousins that were a little older, they would always school me, you know, like, "Hey, yeah, you know, this barrio, this other barrio, this and that," and they would give me the lowdown on the whole, you know, the whole structure and everything. So I would go back to Sanjo, and I had another mentality from everybody else in that, you know, in that neighborhood. And so yeah, I later on I started, you know, and I mean, we would always move around in San Jose, but for some reason, I mean, I guess the reason was that it was low income and we were immigrants, so we would always end up in neighborhoods that had barrios that were sureño.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 15, that's when you know, they told me, "You want to jump into the hood?" And I said, "Yeah, man, you know, I want to jump." So now, you know the drill. I got jumped in. Then they told me, you know, you got to start putting in work, and that's what I did. I started getting into fights, started going to juvie, and then I guess when I really started to just really fully gangbang when I was in high school, because they sent me to this high school that was I had to go they bused me all the way to the south side of San Jose, and I used to live on the east side. When I used to go there, I was the only sureño, you know. When I first got there, it was just me and another sureño. But then my homeboy, little one from SSP, he got in a fight, and you know, they kicked him out of school. So then at the end, it was just me. So it was just me, and I just started, you know, at that point, I just said, I'm just gonna get in a fight with the biggest dude in here, you know, and that's what I did. And after that, I kind of respect it. But I just started from there. I just really started gang banging like fully. And then I guess the other thing was that I started using drugs, man. So I started using.
What kind of drugs
first, I
using?
just started smoking a little weed, you know, drinking 40s with the homies. But then I got introduced to crank, you know, meth. But at that time it was just crank. That we used to call it crank. You know, and I started snorting and then smoking it. And then, you know, and then crystal came into the picture. Yeah. And man, it was just chaos, you know. Yeah. And the problem was that.
I was gonna say, yeah. So the difference between crank and crystal, like, crank was like lower quality, a little bit more.
Yeah, dirty. It was the powder form.
Yeah.
It was a little. I mean, yeah, not. Yeah, I mean, in potency, it was lower. Then when you smoke crystal, it's like right away, you know.
Did you notice right away, or like when you started smoking crystal?
Oh yeah, I noticed the difference. Yeah, I noticed the difference right away. And the issue was that all the homies started using it, man. We all started tweaking, and they just got like. It got pumped up like to another different level. You know, we started like just doing all kinds of stuff, you know, robberies, home invasions, carjacking. I mean, anything. Just, I mean, because we were always just like wired, man. And we just started doing all this. And then just, well, let's go look for these fools, and we just go on the hunt.
Yeah.
Just do it. And I mean, I was in and out of county, and but yeah, that was my issue. You know, to me, I mean, I think that was my lowest point. You know, that drugs that got me. You know, and then I got to the point where.
Let me ask. So, with your drug use, did you start making any kind of changes? Were there changes in the way you would act? Were there changes in the way you would do things or handle yourself?
Oh yeah, you know, I started really. I think one of the main things that started happening was that I started getting really aggressive.
Mm.
I mean, really, really aggressive, and I was always trying to come up on things. You know, I started to sell drugs, trying to, you know, so I could keep my habit up. So I started to sell drugs, and you know, I was always trying to just come up. You know, and to tell you the truth, I was just trying to come up because I wanted to use more. And then what happened was that I couldn't. There was a point where I couldn't do anything without the drugs. You know, if I would try to stop using, I mean, I would always try to start getting, you know, anxious or panic attacks, and I couldn't do shit. You know, I mean, I tried to stay sober, and I couldn't do anything. You know, it would get so bad that I couldn't be around people. I couldn't get in the bus. I couldn't even drive in the car. Even as a passenger, I couldn't do it. You know, if I wasn't under the influence.
What would happen if you're driving in a car?
Oh man, I would just start getting a panic attack. You know, and I would just hyperventilate, and I would have to like hide in the seat. You know, or I would feel like I couldn't breathe, and I would have to stick my head out the window like a dog.
Damn.
Or I would tell him like, pull over, man. I need to walk. And I would just start walking like a madman, man. I would just walk everywhere because I couldn't be in confined places.
That's a trip.
So
I see people sometimes like acting all, you know, nuts like that. And I trip out sometimes like, man, like they was about some good shit. Fucking, you know, a lot of times that's what it is. And like a lot of people are like,
yeah, but that would happen to me when I was coming down most of the time, you know, because I needed it, you know. I mean, my immune system, my body needed it, you know. And I would start coming down, and it was bad, man. So I mean, I tried a lot of times, but to tell you the truth, what really got me sober was that I went to prison. So, well, to get to that point where I got to prison. I mean, I mean, with the drugs, I was in and out of jail, you know, and they sent me to rehabs, and I had to do that court thing where you had to go to meetings and get the sheet signed. I mean, yeah, I was doing all those things, you know, getting P tests done. I mean, all these things that the court was trying to get me to get sober, but I mean, I couldn't do it, you know. And but one night, I mean, I was under the influence like usual, and I was out, and then my brother calls me. This time, my brother was staying at my pad, and he tells me, "Hey, you know, there's some guy over here trying to start shit." And I tell him, "Yeah, I'll be right over, man. I'll be right over." So I go home, and I go into my room, and my brother's there with my 38. You know, I had a gun, and I told my brother, you know, I started lecturing my brother. I'm like, "Hey, man, you know, if you're gonna pull out a gun, make sure I mean, it's because you're gonna use it. You can't just be pulling it out for nothing or trying to scare people with it. I mean, it's only, I mean, if you're gonna do something with it, you know, or if it's needed." And while we're having this conversation, this dude's come back to the house. So they're knocking on the front door, and my homeboy goes to the front door and opens the door, and they start arguing, you know, my homeboy and this guy. And I look from the room through the hallway to the front door, and I see them arguing. So I go to the front door, you know, and I tell him, "Hey, man, who are you looking for?" And he's like, "Hey, man, I'm looking for your brother, blah, 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 blah." And I tell him, "Man, this is my house. You know, you're respecting me. You know, if you're looking for my brother, find him somewhere else." And then he tells me, "Who are you? You're his backup?" And then I said, "Man, get off my property." So he was on the porch, and he starts getting down the porch. And I start following him, and I grab onto the rails of the porch, and I just kick him, boom, right. And we go to the front yard, and I'm ready to throw down, and this guy was huge, you know. And I was like, damn. So I said, well, we're already here, so we start throwing down.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam. And this guy takes off his belt, and wraps it around his hand with the buckle in the front. And he just starts hitting me with the buckle. He hits me in the head, in the back. And I'm trying to grab the buckle, but he's like cutting my hands. And I said, man, I need to get something. I started looking for something on the ground. And right next to the house, there was a brick. So I pick it up, what I'm saying? So I pick it up and I start just going at it with them, like hitting them. Bam, bam, bam. So at this point, he starts running. And he runs across the street to the corner store, a liquor store that was right across the street. And he goes into the liquor store, and I go into the liquor store with him. I follow him in there. And he's in the back, and he opens the refrigerator. He grabs 2 bottles and breaks them. And all the liquid falls out. And he tries to charge me with the broken bottles, but he slips on the liquid. And he just falls, boom, right on his back.
Yeah.
So when he's on the ground, I had the brick still in my hand, and I just, boom, smashed. I threw it right in his face. Blam. And he starts convulsing, doing the fish. He just starts like,
yeah.
And I'm thinking like, damn, And the guy at the store, he's like, hey, get out of here, get out of here. So I just like ran out, and I went back home. And I tell my homeboy, hey, man, I messed up, man. I think I killed him. And he's like, nah, man, don't trip. He's all, don't trip. So I go into the bathroom, and I'm cleaning myself, and by then the cops are there at the front door, and I can see the lights. And I'm thinking like, man, I'm just going to jump out the back fence. I'm just going to start hopping fences. And I go to the back door, and then the cops are already on the other side of the street. I can see the lights, and I'm like, damn. And I'm thinking, and I could make a run for it. And the phone rings, And then my homeboy's girlfriend picks it up, and she's like, it's for you. And I'm like, tell him I'm not here, And she's like, it's the cops. And I'm like, damn. So I pick it up, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'm Sergeant so-and-so. Are you going to come up, or are we going to go in there and get you? And I tell him, there's a baby in here, I'll go out. And they're like, well, come out. Take off your shirt and come out with your hands up. So I do, I'm like, damn. Take off my shirt, stick up my hands, and I'm walking out the front door. They tell me to come down the porch and turn around. So I do, and they just start hitting me with the sticks, blam, blam. And they take me in, man. They take me and my brother in. So they take us to jail. I'm already used by this time of going in and out of county jail, so I'm not tripping. I'm like, yeah, nothing big, So they stick me into the holding cell, and it's taking forever, man. I'm like, man, and I'm coming down again from drugs, and I'm going nuts again. I'm like, hey, give me some water. I'm dying here. And they're like, you know what you did, and I'm like, I didn't do nothing. I just got in a fight. And they're like, you're here for murder. I said, what? They're like, yeah, that guy he's in the hospital right now getting surgery. If he doesn't make it, you're done for. And I'm thinking, oh, damn, that's when it hits me, like, oh, man, and this time I start hoping this guy doesn't die. And I'm like, well, I hope he doesn't die. So the whole night I'm in the holding cell. By morning, they let me out, and they're like, yeah, all right, we're going to arrest you now. And they gave me a attempted murder.
Damn.
And they just they shoot me to a cell, So they shoot me down to the hole in the county. And I'm in the hole, and I'm with the homies. We have a whole row just with homies. And for me, like I said, I'm used to it. So I'm like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And in county, I'm doing the same stuff, I'm doing, getting into fights. And through this ordeal, we're fighting the case for 1 year.
Yeah.
We're fighting this case for 1 year. And finally, they tell me, all right, the public defender tells me, we're going to let you go, but we're going to keep your brother, because my brother was like the one involved with this whole issue.
Yeah, like the instigator and shit.
Yeah. And then another thing that I forgot was that my brother had sent an email that they found where he was saying, if I see this guy, I'm going to get him. Damn. So then they started saying that it was we were premeditated murder, and we were planning it, which was not the case. But that's how they were viewing it. So then, so they tell me they're going to let me loose. And then he tells me, no, you know what? this is the deal, you know. We could let you lose, and your brother does 10 years, or you could do 3 years and your brother does 5. And I say, man, well, let me talk to my brother, you know. I said, let me talk to him. So they put us in the cell together, and I tell him, hey, man, how are you doing? You know, can you do the 5 years? And he goes, yeah, I think I could do it. I said, how are you doing up here, man? Can you do 5 years? And he's like, yeah, man, I could do it. I said, all right, let's take this deal, man. So I tell him, yeah, you know, I'll sign off on the deal. And I told him, like, let me just talk to my mom, you know. And they said, all right. So I tell my mom, you know, hey, Jefita, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I'm going to take some time for my brother, you know. And she's like, oh, well, you know. So I end up getting shipped to prison. And then, so that, I think, I mean, at that time, like I said, I think, I mean, for me, it was like, I mean, I'm thinking that this is all bad, all this stabbing. But during all this time, I mean, when I was that whole year in county, I got through it sober, man. I mean, I got my body, I mean, got clean, you know. I mean, I slept. I'm not gonna lie, I slept like for the first 3 months, day and night. You know?
Damn.
And I was eating, and then the homies would help me out because I would just like, sometimes they would just kick me down chocolate because I was just kicking to heaven. They would just say, here, man, eat some chocolate, you know, have some coffee and chocolate, and that would get me a little bit better. But then by the time I went to prison, I was all right. And then I decided, that's when I decided myself, I said, I'm not gonna use, man. And then the homies at that point, they had we couldn't use that. I mean, we couldn't use crystal, you know, that was a no-no, you know. I mean, you could use any other things, but, you know, they would say, well, you can't use that queer use, you know, because they said, man, you know, it messes up things up in here. So
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you would get really checked if they found anybody using it. So I said, man, cool, you know, I'm not going to use.
Yeah,
so
you know, it's crazy. I see just a lot of people who use that, like even out here, like change like crazy. You know what I mean? Or like, damn, these fools ain't even recognizable anymore. You know what I mean? Like talking to themselves and just like it's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that brings out the scandalous in people too.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened in prison. Well, like I said, when I got there, I mean, that was already the rules, you know, that you couldn't use it. So it was, I mean, that's another thing that saved me. You know, I said, fuck it, you know, I'm not going to use it. And then, so that's the way it was. You know, I told myself I'm not going to use. I even stopped smoking, you know, because I would see what would happen with the cigarettes. You know, there was always conflict, and then the homies would have to get involved. And then another thing was that, you know, coming up from upstate, you know, I had to be. It was kind of. It's not that the homies look down on you, but you know, you kind of like gotta put in more work and show that you know that. I mean, you gotta kind of earn your respect, you know, more than the homies from down.
I think part of that's fun too, because most of the people who are incarcerated are going to be, you know, from the LA, Riverside.
Yeah, you know, and the cars are big, you know, and usually
they already know each other.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you come from another area, then it's like, oh, you know him? Like, nah, he's a homie though. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's the way it was. You know, they would kind of be like, I mean, there would be. I mean, it was all cool, but that's how it was. You know, it was like there was big cars like Orange County. There was LA. They were always big, and then us like homies from upstate. It would just be a little. I mean, 1, 2, or 3. You know, and that's max. You know, so then we had to kind of like just do our stuff, and so yeah, I stopped using when I was in there, and I even told the homies, you know, I'm not gonna even smoke, you know, because, you know, it would. I mean, for instance, you know, I was one of my homies showed up from Sanjo, and he started dealing cigarettes, and then he got us into a big thing, man, over cigarettes because he lost the stash that he went to pick up somewhere else when he wanted medical, and then it was just a big like political thing between the homies and I just said, that's when I said, man, you know what? I'm gonna stay clean. When I, you know,
yeah.
I mean, I was still, you know, fighting and doing all kinds of other stuff, but on regards to drugs, I said, you know, I'm gonna stay clean. You know, I wouldn't even touch the pruno or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
So So at the end, when I was gonna come out, they sent me to see the judge about the deportation.
Yeah.
Because I had a felony now. So they said, you want to fight your felony and see if you could stay in the country, or do you want to get deported? And I said, what's involved? And they said, well, you're going to now we're going to ship you to federal, and you got to wait and fight your case there. We can't tell you how long that's going to take. And I just said, nah, man, you know what? Just deport me,
Yeah.
They said, all right, sign off and you'll be deported when you're released. So I signed off. No, and they deported me down to Mexicali, and I ended up back in Mexico City. After all these years, it was.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I was 26 when I got deported, and I left when I was 7.
Damn.
So it was a whole trip. I was like, damn. So I get back to Mexico City, and I'm looking for people like me. So I start talking to people that I think that are like homies, or gang members, but they got a whole different trip, They're like, they say they're sureños, but they really don't know like the real,
Yeah.
They don't know anything, like the background of it, because, and then sometimes I would meet people with tattoos, like LA, and I would tell them, hey man, you're from LA, and they're like, nah, and I said, what do you have that tattoo for? They're like, well, I just got it, or they have the dots or the 13, and I would tell them, hey man, where'd you get that 13? And they're like, oh yeah. And I said, like, so who, and they're like, oh, like the movies. And I'll be like, man, so they think everything's just like the movies, like they would say, oh yeah, mi vida loca and stuff like that. And it's like, what the hell, So then I said, man, so from Mexico City, I moved to a small town, and it was even worse there, it was like, everybody would look at me, because I had all tattoos and everything. I was bald headed back then with a gold teeth, and they would be like, damn, But I mean, I still, when I got back to Mexico, I'm not gonna lie, I started drinking, but I didn't want to touch drugs, man. I was like, I'm not gonna touch drugs. I'm not gonna touch drugs. I know what happens if I touch drugs. And like I said, the thing that saved me was like going to prison. I always tell people, if I didn't go to prison, I would have been dead by now. I would have either by, I don't know, an overdose or shot, stabbed, or I would have done something else, and I would have been back in prison for long. And so I started, I started to talk to people that were like-minded, that wanted to stop using, And I met homies from big homies in this town, And I got a mentor, and my mentor told me, because I told him, like, man, I feel bad that I did so much shit, I feel bad that I did all this dirt, and I would tell him what I did, I said, I did this and the other, I really feel bad about it. And he tells me, well, if you wanna make it up, do something good for somebody else, and because I told him, I feel bad that, I can't make amends to those people. He says, well, do something good to somebody. And when you're doing something good for somebody, then think about all those things you did and about that people you hurt. So I say, yeah, man. So I took it to heart, and then I started to think about going to volunteer. I started to look up where I could go volunteer. And I went online and I found a place to volunteer. It was a school in Ecuador, in a little town called Salasaca. And it was a school, where they were teaching people how to read and write, adults and kids. It was like their port down there. And I went down there and I started helping out. And that really changed my mentality completely, because those people didn't have anything, they were, like I said, dirt poor, and they would always try to be kind and good to me and give me whatever I had. And they would always appreciate whatever I had to give, even if it was just teaching them how to read and write. And some of them I would try to teach English too. And so then that gave me a different perspective on my life, because before that, like I said, I would feel bad about myself, about everything I did. And this started to give me another mentality, like, I could make a difference. So I came back to Mexico. I did that for 3 months that first time. And I came back, and I started working, and just what I did was work and save my money, just a little money, because I would do all this just backpacking, and try to just save some money and go again. And I started to go Nicaragua, El Salvador, all South Central, Colombia, anywhere I could. I would just find. And then another thing was the people that I would volunteer with would tell me about other places where I could go volunteer. And I would get in contact with those people, and they would say, "Yeah, come down, come down, and tell us."
You're teaching the same thing every time, like literacy. Is that what you're?
No, because I would go to different things, like for instance, in Nicaragua, there was a place where there was I was working with blind and deaf people, and they had a program where they had a restaurant, and the restaurant was all fully run by people with deficiencies, like the cooks, whether they're deaf, and then the servers were also, they were deaf, so they would have. And the guy running was from Spain, so he told me, like, hey, can you teach these guys a little bit of English, like just or write a menu in English for them, So I would. And then they had another program where they were making hammocks, even all those people, and I would help them. So those kind of things. And then I went to Guatemala, and I was working with ex-gang members, that wanted to get out of the gangs, because I had a lot of, Mara Salvatrucha and 18 down there in Central America. So, and that's another thing that gave me a really reward when I was down there with them. At first, I didn't get a warm greeting from them, because I was from Mexico, and they don't like Mexicans a lot down there. It's not that they don't like them, but they got this conflict, because when they come through Mexico illegally, like the police and everybody really treats them really bad down here in Mexico, and they have to go through Mexico to get to the States. So they told me this, like, really, like, stories about their sisters getting raped by the army or the coyotes, or getting robbed by the police, and that's why they don't like Mexicans, So when I was down there, they didn't, like I said, they didn't give me a warm greeting, and so one night I had to tell my story, they told me, well, can you tell us your story, so I go up and tell my story in front of them. And after I tell them, about, the same things I'm talking about now, at the end, some guy comes up, and he tells me, you know what? He says, this is the first time I ever believed anybody that comes down here. He says, because they always bring doctors, policemen, Christians to talk to us. He says, but they don't know what it's like. He says, and what you just told me, that's the same thing, that I lived. He says, I really believe, because you lived that life. He says, and he told me, thank you for telling your story. And I said, man, you know what? I said, I'm just telling you what it was. Like, I'm just telling you what my life was. I'm not doing anything. I said, I'm just telling you, like, if me and you were just having coffee and I would tell you what happened. I said, I'm just being truthful. And I said, but I appreciate what you're telling me. And I told him, I said, you know what? You could do the same thing someday. Someday you could tell somebody else your story, and maybe help them out. And
what did he say?
Oh no, we still sometimes he still writes me letters, like, by mail.
Dope. Yeah.
So, and he's doing good. He says he has a kid now and he's working and everything. So it's cool. It's cool to feel like that. That after all that dirt I did, it's doing something good now. I don't have to feel bad about it anymore. But yeah, I've been down there. The last time I was there, I was March. I was down there in Colombia. I was working with street kids. They were all on huffing and puffing glue and stuff like that. And I was trying to talk to them, but they're gone. That glue gets you gone too.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's really rewarding, man, when you go and do something like that. And like I said, I don't do it for them as much as I do it for myself, because like I said before this, I was just feeling, I think at a point I was really depressed, because I kept thinking about everything I did. and it still happens. I don't know. I mean, I might be watching a movie, and I see something in the movie, and it just gives me flashbacks. Or somebody might be talking about something, and it gives me a flashback, and I'm just back into that lifestyle, and I just get like, I mean, truthfully, drug addiction and incarceration and gang affiliation gives you mental scars, man.
Yeah.
Because I got PTSD from it. Panic disorder from it. I got all these things that I know come from that lifestyle. And like I said, I might be watching. There's things that I can't even watch. Like watching something on Netflix, and I got to turn it off. And I was like, no, I can't do this. It just gives me flashbacks. And so yeah, I do it for myself. Like I said, I try to make amends for everything that I did.
And for somebody who wants to do work like that, like how much would a backpacking trip like cost to get over there, and what would you need to like let's say somebody wants to follow like your path, and they say, I want to give back, I want to go like how would you set that up?
Well, like I said, usually what I do, I just go online and I start looking for volunteer work that is free, like free volunteer work where they give you lodging and food. And then all I really save up for is my plane ticket, and just bus fares and a little bit of money just to have around. To tell you the truth, most of the time when I go there, there's times when I just gone like with $500, man. I could be there. I just backpack, and then when I'm there, I literally just, I buy like oatmeal, a big bag, and rice, and just like tuna, just things that they're easily, it's not expensive, and that's what I eat, And then there's places that give you either lunch and dinner or breakfast, and that's the way it is. And most of the places, they always have a place for the volunteers to stay and sleep. And so, yeah, I've never really spent more than, I think, usually more than $1,000 I never spent, man. Because, for instance, Ecuador is really cheap. It's dirt cheap. Like, I could live down there volunteering for like $10 a week.
Damn.
Yeah.
So that's a trip, because like it's crazy, because like a lot of people go to different places to see like the luxurious part of it, but you're going over there to help, and you're going over there, and in a way you're going just like they are to escape. You know what I mean? Like you said, like to put yourself in another place and see life differently, for a little bit. That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, and I guess that's another reward I get, because I've seen a lot of things. Like I've seen all kinds of things. Like I've seen a lot of cities. I've been to Argentina, Cuba, Colombia. All Central. I think the only place I haven't been in South America is Brazil, but I'm looking forward to that. But the reason why I haven't gone there is because that's one of the most expensive countries down there. Their money's worth a lot more, so it's harder to go for me. Yeah. But all the other countries where it's cheap, that's what I do. And like I said, I work, and just save. And whenever I have enough money, I just buy it. And another thing is that when I'm looking for plane tickets, I'm always looking for the bargain. I'm always like, when I find a bargain, I'm like, yeah, man, cool. And then that's when I go. Yeah. And then just backpack, and I just take a backpack just with my clothes, and that's all I take, just the backpack, and boom.
Yeah.
And I wash my hand. And another thing that prison taught me is like how to eat, like anything. Yeah. And then I just take care of myself. I wash my own clothes, in the sink, or like prison, man. I'm used to like sleeping anywhere. I could go, and if I go volunteer and they put me in a room with 10 guys, I don't care, man. I'm used to it,
Yeah.
So for me, it's nothing different. It's like just like being back in prison, but I'm doing something good this time.
Yeah, that'll work. And
Yeah.
see, last time we went is in March, so after this quarantine thing is fixed and everything's back to normal, you thinking about going back?
Yeah, yeah. I got like I now I got a few connections of different people, so I wanna go back to Colombia. You know, I wanna go back down there, and because I was working with the kids, like the gang members up there, and they have the kind of like favelas,
Yeah.
but they call them comunas down there. And I met some guys down there, and they told me, if I wanted to go down there and help out, and just tell them a little bit about my story and stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, that's my life now, and staying out of trouble. I mean, I haven't down here, when I first got here, like I said, I started drinking a little, and I would go to jail. But jail here is no joke, man. It's not like the States, And I said,
Yeah.
hell no, I don't want to end up in prison here, So I stay myself good out here.
That'll work.
And and I haven't been. I don't plan to go back to the States, And right now, I mean, I got two felonies, 2 strikes, and
Yeah.
if I go back there, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
And so yeah, but
So
yeah, I
so now
mean,
so now your life is totally different. And how long has it been since you were released?
I got here 15 years ago.
15 years.
Yeah.
Would you have thought 15 years ago that you'd be seeing
No,
all
man.
countries helping people out, or?
No, man, never, never. Like I said, I mean, I think if I would have never went to prison that last time, and I would have still been using,
Yeah.
I would have been using. I would have been dead. I would have been up in prison again. And another thing, another trip that happened was that while I was gonna get released from Cali Patria, that's when that big riot kicked off, and they killed the homies. They shot the homies. That was, and after that, we went on lockdown like the month before I got deported. And that whole month that I was on lockdown, I was thinking, man, if I keep doing this, I'm gonna stay up in this joint forever. I said, this is just a revolving door. And I said I could have been shot. I could have been involved in the riot. I mean, a lot of things could have happened. But thankfully that day, they only let I was in my pod. It was only the top tier and the bottom tier, and they'd only let the top tier out to yard that day. And all the bottom tier, we all stayed locked up. We weren't able to get out. And I was thinking, if they would have cracked that door, I probably would have still been in there.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be nationwide news too. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
man.
well, I'm glad that you were able to get out and you changed your life around, because you don't even know like the impact you could have already made on somebody's life. That's the crazy thing, because a lot of the time volunteers, they don't even know that they made an impact on people's lives. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was in YA, a volunteer gave me a book, told me, like, just check it out for your mind. You know what I mean? And it was the 4 Agreements, and that should change my life.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
a good book.
So like you're traveling around and you're doing what you can to help people, and I wouldn't be surprised if you changed hundreds of people's lives directly and indirectly. So I just commend you on that. That's some real dope shit.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I remember, like I said, I try to do it for myself mostly, but yeah, if I touch somebody, man, that's good. If I could get somebody, just get that seed in there.
Yeah.
Like I said, because that seed got planted in me at some point. Where I said, I gotta change. And I did the same thing. I would read books and listen to things, and a lot of those things that I read and got the chip going the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, there was a lot of. I mean, for me, there was a lot of miracles that were disguised. Like prison, and, and then when I got deported, I thought it was like I was done. I said, "What am I gonna do? I don't know anybody down there. I don't have. And I would have never thought that I would have been traveling. And that's another thing that prison gave me, the yearning for freedom, man. And I said, and like I said, I told myself, the first thing I want to do is I want to go visit all the pyramids in Mexico, all the archaeological sites.
Yeah.
So then I started saving money, and I just started to that's the first. Before I started volunteering, that's the first thing I started to go out to all the pyramids in different states, and I would trip out and be like, man, you know, I'm free. You know, I'm free to do if I stay clean and I stay, I mean, out of trouble, out of prison, I could do this. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people don't realize too, like the world is a pretty like they say it's a small world, but the world for our size is pretty big. Yeah, it's a pretty big world.
Man.
There's a lot to see, and it's a trip. I mean, some people think, I'm not in America, my life is over. Like, nah, like you said, like there's shit out there to see. You know what I mean? Like it's a trip, man. So like again, like hats off to you for your journey. You know, it's a trip, man. You've inspired. I'm pretty sure you've impacted a lot of people out there, and I thank you for like doing that, man.
No, man, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Any time. And before we close out, is there anything else you want to say? Or any shout outs, anything?
No, just like I said, you know, I mean, if you do something good for somebody, you know, I mean, that's always, I mean, that's what that's what I always think now, you know, I got to do something good for somebody, you know, but in my case, it's because all the dirt that I have in my past, you know, I always say, if I could just do something good for somebody, you know, do it, you know, do it. So that's it.
Well, I appreciate it, man. That's Rooster right there. And, you know, he's been on an incredible journey. And I'm pretty sure if we talk to him a year, 2 years from now, he'll have another incredible story. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the way you do things. So that's pretty tight, man. I appreciate you taking the time out. And
thank you.
And thanks for all your work. But with that said, we're out. Peace.
Peace.